entered into the system. The other thing is that the process. It sounds like we've got something on the horizon of how the process is going to work. Um, it sounds like DCD is willing to work with the chapters, but the compliance and monitoring would happen at the AIF level, and I think that's how the actual legislation of the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund was set up. But I'm not sure if anyone from legal has actually examined what we're doing, or if we're compiling that now, so that way legal can make sure everything is sufficient. As far as controller's office, as long as we have I'm assuming the chapter resolution accepting these funds and how it's going to be utilized, and somebody submitting the RDPs, then we can process those documents as such. But to this point, I think the problem was that the process and who was going to be responsible for what was the question. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willie, for that. Shananta, the Koro discussion topics on resolution RDCMA-07-21, funding, allocation, and procurement, Navajo Nation chapter resolutions and application process, auto distribution plan, permit and non-permit holders, chapter membership eligibility, and water inclusion. Toge aro aishi bara baha otzi dande shnanta no senegi korobayel tigishin. There was a few statements made. For DCD, two draft applications, we were prepared to done. Dr. Shabala, nego koro 4 million, sasit lego yahati, at hest ego, 110 chapters, opa, aradotso. Oh, yahatzi, aro, di koro, kashi, naidos kito lesson and anhichin ashle. So, do you have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kudo RDC, kudo members of Shanigi, kudo snaka, ada inta kudo reported that Shagi, kudo the Division of Community Development, kudo the Shishiteja, kudo Dr. Element, ada inta kudo Mr. Adikai, ada nana kudo Shishan Ash, Dr. Shabala, Division Director for Natural Resources, kudo. Mazrita, oh yeah, but Bantas kids is that kudo. Mazrita, the 4 million, okay. Kudo Aikish chapters. What are those? The public what those means, Niki. I quite you should be you are Bantas kids, kudo. I call the great 50-50 go a 50-50 formula. What I hear washed ends in the whole. I call the great 110 chapters. 50% I guess on that outside borders give it care. What actually I guess on to I don't know could off Bansanas case could on the great Kay had done so Nash ego could off I don't know could the great permit holders and non-permit holders. So that I don't know could have Bansana case was the better. So it's even could on non-permit holders. So could so it about Bantas Kevin Magay Kay I can so could Magay I don't yaba feed and he could obviously share and mitigate on a great talk. Shane that was what men say. I did all yet by now, your neck or now, or just stay there. That I on his what they see the whole cut. A cocoa, I don't know, a great down it, so could it doesn't even now yet all by Diego by Yates, feet, leak, and so you put on this case, but on a great talkie. I don't know, a great windmills at that eggy. I don't know whether we just went through the monsoon season. Could ADIC could Khalid I don't Khalid Navig Pit or lesson for you could on a great down. So the great down. I think he and that's I Diego. But the great talkie or the house go Azurado Diego said I says the Hashin was then that clay could on a great maybe about 3 to 4 inches that they have a child less than that. Go other than the horse say yago. Ele height about ye land for you. That's case of that did. I don't know a great ye go spade the husband Nikki. I see Kodo in that Michigan donor has in so I yego. The spade the husband Nakonaga grazing committee members. At the Snokodo out on the eastern land boards. As the spade the husband because they're down at the local level working with the people, with all the great ranchers that I don't know non-ranchers that have livestock. I say yes not Mexico. So ila height by Yale kito land for the great toki has changed at Quedo. The great how that they gives ho. So 80 years this the question has seen I don't know how many gallons went into San Juan River. I didn't know the great Lake Powell. Lake Powell did oil about 400 meters na level granaki. I see you don't get this me na hallen so can the toy yan shit na hallen kon get shit. The cocoa total and the cocoa Lake Powell be not go. So that I did the cut. I don't know Leo says ego to I don't young to sleep the over Kagi Dane dates. I don't think I'm just they do Batona not close in lineage and nada the Kito lesson they got have been Praga towards so nada don't be about the year. So Hagon the old don't hear not the first nana. Scope the Hoye not close in lineage. So have been trash and so that the other band that's chemical. So the rate that the 4 million they gave them. So the rate 50-50 formula I was on this could on a rate and again the 110 chapters I don't know registered voters they be econana job which honado nasal dodo. So hot about this case just as then dodo but togi by Yale Kiosin that is nation for area band that's case so it is a togi I don't know until kat oy to the hallo da kat so saying that claim but so it and that then so but it's need a grazing official on a land board area was better how going to go I don't know something then again Leo de Kagon Saint here the Halloni bakers in here the Halloni ba when it a hot agi don na ko he had again his husband. So I don't know the chapters with how they go hot again needs with our advantage yet here the great when we're down here at the local grazing official yet it's here. So just at that 4 million without that the horse side of it, let us say how she bet on this no that it's hard things like that. I don't know the permit holders done Linky I don't know non-permit holders but yeah that's just hard that they cut. So I see could but now yeah could on a great and I see the even now could out but sit like it's a chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions or concerns?
Shania, comment, Chair.
Honorable Stewart, you have the floor.
There you go. Yeah, Shania, Chairman Nez, Aro, Shaja Vice Chairman Walker, Aro Kuroshina, RDC members and the Kliniki, Aro and his staff, the attorney, though, Kuros, Dr. Shabala, so in Hijahat Ziki, though, Mr. Watchman, Jan Sada, Kiskit Alvin, Ben Hilta Hosh Nike, Aro President Gieto, Hashin Sogo Ebis, Queens Netdo, Kut Al Aya, Nada the least no con by Heinzi, Dr. Shabala. My question is, if this is already set up within the system, I not basis in this. It's already gone through, the OOC has already gone to set up the accounts again, just to put the monies in. The monies are already there to get these resolutions and these plans of distribution submitted. Then they will, if I'm not mistaken, that's what we've been informed. And then to do this 4 million divided among 110 chapters equally. That's doing another legislation again. That's going to be taking time again to do that legislation. I'm still waiting on legislations from 3-4 years ago I haven't got. Because we don't have the attorneys to do them. Why can't we just continue with the process to get these out there for these chapter members, these permit holders and the livestock owners? According to where was the recommendation that I submitted? Dr. Shabala, did you even talk to President about that? Why is it that we can do these fairs every year and give those coordinators blue books and whatnot to run different events, and yet we can't even do that with the grazing officials, land board, and chapter officials to say how many permittees, non-permittees do you have here? Give them this stipend form to go to their chapter and have the chapters issue the checks to these individuals. Was that even discussed to him? Did you guys even think about that? We're short on water, we're short on feed. It's getting into winter now. People are concerned about not only their feed, their water, but how to keep their homes warm for the winter. And yet we're still having a pullback from Department of Agriculture and Division of Natural Resources on these funds. I don't see you guys out there herding sheep, rounding up cattle for these farmers and these ranchers out there. Why hang on to their money? It goes to them. They're the ones that are out there daily with their cattle, their sheep, their horses. They're the ones that need those funds. That's all I want to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Let me go back to Dr. Shabala, your response.
Yeah, Chairman is around the Delegate Stewart, Sherman Daniels, yeah, Nizado, around the Leo Watchman, though. Bahan Sinkoko, a business units, a indeed, Aro, Cornell, not Nangi, a 8 hour, Kitten and Satan, so a what a hot the Aro, this whole Shiki Benina, a Hotini, Aro, a 50-50 formula or some, but dot and a store. So a Sato less than your house street. Yeah.
Thank you for your response, Dr. Shabala. What were, as leaders, Koro, Beshwans, and Koro, Behas Ania, Bahatal, Edo, and Lady, and I'll flush one more the Bakat or what Nenigi by Yelche. A co Arnold Chokoro, Shnand, Arnold Lenigi, Dr. Bala, as well as Dr. Yellowman, the Watchman, and Mr. Willie. What we're looking for is great. Allah, Hadi Beso, Jaita, Habe, has on Elia. Are they all but what are the names? A quagishing says kid. The Kodo, Ashini at Ehoshim, on Susan Cage, Dr. Shabala, Ado Division Directors, Besto, President, at the Hawk, Kajo, no Hainzi, given nature. Yet Ehoshim on Yada sort in the DDG. I believe that the chapter has odd parahadochin. Zero hot era or equal distribution go. So small chapters per permittee adequate, I have not that I don't need. I per permittee or you better have no unit that I don't need. Lay Burnham jail hot or you'd never permittees for long. But you go San Juan chapter 8 at the Kuya. A co. Lay that down, they burn them there. So the hay. Adi at the Kuya. So tons do at the Kuya the permittees that. But I had all changed. Asian ben nae cross it silahota had see do dibe has ani hataliaki at yak at onna shuti ne special kin le hotel land board do grazing official ad yen that do nish e koro ida asha te be has ani el ne ko shin do nation de di ko ege Ban yesid hitna sena sto ara kro Mr. Robert Willian allocation is already in the system nela it's going to require another legislation and that nice in that hasta dela to job in the north is the land hit it on especially Leo Watchman I should be behind why how do I know that Spahos and AI grazing officials yes not Nasha a quibits other deal chance. He's gonna receive a lot of negative statements from the grazing officials. Condition hobitat na even in the deal navigate on a deal critique a koro egg shipping koro. That's the purpose of this meeting. But let's keep moving forward. And they could have been the whole geez, the recommendations follow up. They could have been not a seat. The Nasi tied on and I can ill on. It's never getting quiet in it's undone. I allowed and him. What end the dish a day, maybe egg is a yakon. That's what we're here for today. Let's fix it today. Let's walk away and say, this is what we decided to do. Just the Honorable Stewart, he was the main sponsor of this legislation. The Silachite lands and dik a corona siki. The Quidishin ben hit nahin land. Koroben hitch hanansi. Aro ebik corona statity kanat on an eight lenigito, Dr. Yellowman, A chapters that is not let's go ASC then what don't need distribution plan again that the not odd option what net I don't that grain at that eggy I don't feed which what net what don't need a could a happy has on a has on of ESC Tida Halate in Latito. I don't talk in on Edo hate our deal, mitigation of the deal today. So, Honorable Stewart, can you tell us what you want? Koro, late all on and the Koron Bekek at the cut.
Chairman, can you put me in the queue for
that? Yes. Honorable Stewart.
Okay, Shana. I want to stick with what the original plan was. We just need to move forward with this legislation. The way it is, the way it's already written, even Dr. Yellman's waiting for the Department of Ag and also the Division of Natural Resources to move forward with what their plans are going to be and what needs to be established with this funding to get back down to the chapters. Again, it belongs to our ranchers. It belongs to our livestock holders at the chapter level. We just need to move these funds forward to them. I don't understand why we went as far as even asking for tally counts. When I used to apply, when it was in New Mexico, I used to go to USDA office. All I did was just take my grazing permit over there. They didn't ask for a tally count. They didn't ask for if my permit was still valid. Although it did have my deceased grandmother's name on there, I still used it. And I got the check. They never came around I got my tally count on my horses. So I was following the policy, but they never came around to ask. And I know that we've heard that before, that it's required. But I would just take my permit over there. And I'm sure there's other ranchers that have done the same thing in the past. So I want to just again, and Dr. Yellman has said this before as well too, again, we just need to have the Division of Natural Resources and Department of Ag come to the table and say, this is how we're going to work. This is what's going to be done. Instead of coming up with all these different options again. That's not going to work. It's already been approved. There was a 5-day comment period that went through when the legislation was established. There was a meeting that we had to pass legislation. We went through all of our attorneys. We discussed it thoroughly at the time. So now what's the holdup? And there's over what, $80,000, $80 million in there. Like we need to do something with those funds for our ranchers and our livestock owners. That's the best way I can say it, Shania.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Aro Daisnostanagi, Nanto, Dr. Yeoman, Dr. Shabala, Mr. Watchman, and Mr. Willie. The sponsor of this legislation, when it was approved, became a resolution. What Honorable Stewart wants, as he spoke, is let's just move forward with this legislation. Now we have something to talk about. We have something to speak to. How are you going to contribute your work to this legislation now? Dr. Yellowman, I'll go to you first.
Good afternoon, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you to all members of RDC and Division of Natural Resources for the conversation. We have been taking in consideration to all of the conversations, and we are prepared to move forward. Mr. Adekai from CPMD, he has been engaging with quite a few of the land board and grazing officials, and he's offered to continue communicating with the application process with the grazing and land board community. We only ask that from this meeting, DNR submit the distribution guidelines. There's two pieces of information that we really need from DNR. That's the distribution guidelines. There was one issued April 20 of 21. If there is a updated one, we would request for that, hopefully by the end of the day. And then the other is the criteria, the eligibility criteria. This one was a draft. It was a draft, and it was issued March 30th, 2021, and it's the 2021 livestock feed distribution eligibility requirements. That way, those can be exhibits or attachments to the application process. We also ask that Mr. Watchman participate in our ASC weekly calls to all of the chapter officials and chapter staff to provide an update and to provide contact information and to serve as a point of contact for the chapters moving forward. This can be done once we get the review process completed by DOJ. We have reached out to OOC, and as Mr. Rob Willie mentioned earlier, that once we get the green light from DOJ, we can move forward with the applications that we've created. The other is we do have a tracking system, and chapters have been submitting their resolutions and supporting documents. So we could make a concentrated effort and perhaps use both OPVP and the Speaker's Office for communications to all chapters, which would be a good thing if we can get to that point. So, Chair, those would be our updates or our comments to the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Aro Navajo Dr. Rudy Shabala, Koro Nasko, Nas moving forward. Dr. Shabala.
Yeah, Chairman Nez, Shida Rudy R. Shabala, Aro Yat, Tibet Holzisto, Nisto, Yat, Aro, the case she says, how nation. I teach I go like even that year. Yeah.
Dr. Shabala, I could do Koroba or Jiggin if I could do all Nash or Nick and laughed at the Nebachin for that or Niki. If I could, I don't need Koro, as though Dr. Yellowman Yahat did, and also to Mr. Watchman did. We would like for him to participate in the weekly calls for chapters. All the 8 grazing officials, yes, Nahalnet or Lestida, they been Yana Dikidiki. Of course, Sahonaida Kidden Lekro, Dr. Shabala, in order to submit distribution guidelines, eligibility criteria requirement, isn't it?
Coach, we'll get that turned in. We'll get it. Auto moving forward. So that's thank you.
Dr. Shabala, how submit and let Dr. Yellowman, but
we'll have it by, I think she asked for the end of today. We should be able to have it by then.
Before the end of today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hakoshina Dr. Shabala for that. Just a neck a day on the Inkitika. Mr. Leo Watchman.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I concur with what was mentioned, and we will get on it. We will be attending or be on those calls, also providing the communication to get this done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Watchman, thank you for that. And Dr. Yellowman, if I do have time, I would like to call in. Perhaps RDC can call in just to listen in. If you would provide us that number, I know we're very busy, but perhaps one of us could call in and listen in. So, Mr. Willie, are you still on the call?
Yes, sir, I'm still here.
Okay. The discussion you're probably following along with her. So, is there anything that you need from your shop?
Once the plan and everything is approved, then we'll just need to know the process, and then I believe, I'm not sure who's going to send this to RDPs. I guess that's one of the questions. So once all the documents are resolved and filled out, and I'm assuming that we're going to pay the chapter. So I'm not sure who's going to be doing the payment documents. Is it going to be Natural Resources or is it going to be DCD? I guess that's one of the questions that I have right now.
Thank you for that, Mr. Willie. Dr. Yellowman, Korocha out Zigala, but not on the Ashmore.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Willie, Rob, we have been discussing here with our team members here, and we can assist with the RDPs. I know ASC is extremely busy. All of DCD is extremely busy, but I think it's the chapter ASC, SPPS. They work very closely with the chapters and the chapter officials. And I think they're all eagerly waiting. So I anticipate this could be happening fast. I want to say. So we'll work on the RDPs, and we'll have to work closely with you, Mr. Willie, to make sure that the chapters move forward on this, or the chapters receive their payments or funds. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Yeoman. Mr. Willie, are you good with that, sir?
Yes, sir. We usually work really well with Dr. Yellman's group as far as the chapters go. So I feel that we can get them out. Once we get all the information, once we work with them, it should work smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. Let me go to Honorable Freeland now. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Freeland. Press *6. Honorable Freeland?
Chair, he's not on the call.
Okay. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? RDC?
Chairman Nez?
Yes.
Delegate Ottoso would like to request to speak.
Okay. Honorable So, you have the floor. Honorable Ottoso, press *6.
I'm glad that you guys are moving forth with the current plan. Our ranchers are really asking for this. And lady the never bears ani that I sosigi dashin soko yadin bears ani ba chato nitha no yado yad ba kodo nitho to relieve them. And they are, all the ranchers are looking forward to this. My ranchers in Western Navajo, Tuba City alone covers 204 grazing permit holders, servicing into the regions of the coal mine chapter, Cameron, and Gap. And what Chairman Nez stated is that there's more permit holders in service areas that grazing officers service. And like I indicated, Tuba City chapter has 204 grazing permits on record that grazing officer services. I'm not too sure my neighboring chapters such as Coal Mine, Tonalia, and those area, but and the permit holders, and I'm glad that we're moving forth on this to try to relieve our ranchers out there. And this is just Tuba City, just so that you know how many permit holders are in the Tuba City chapter area versus another chapter that has may have only 80 permits, and that equal distribution really does not work well at that point. So she permits yeah.
Thank you, Honorable So. Honorable Freeland, are you back on the call with us? Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, I'm here. Thank you.
You're up.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, colleagues and Tele and presenters, Dr. Yellowman, Dr. Shabala, everyone that's a part of this discussion. I appreciate Teliaje, his comments as far as moving forward, and our side is always, I'm going to say we're always going to be at a disadvantage again, and we don't have that many grazing permits, but we have a lot of livestock owners out there. So I think Eastern as a whole needs to be counted altogether as well. And I support the equal distribution. My land boards are in the chapters are asking when this is going to take place, and I did speak to the amendments. I think we need to look at this as a issue of a pandemic and an emergency situation. We were dealing really with drought until we got hit with rains over a month ago. And if the federal government or USDA has issues with this, then maybe we should go to our congressional delegation and ask them for help. Maybe they can rewrite laws or create new laws or new policies in Congress that we won't have to go through this again. Our people are struggling. Our ranchers are struggling. Livestock owners are struggling. Everyone is struggling. It's one form of many forms of hardship. And, this is a way of life for many of our people. And, we have a lot of ranchers out there. We have a lot of ranchers in Vicente, and they're waiting. So I just wanted to make that known, Shananta. I'm really going to count on our land boards in Eastern. I'm going to count on our land boards at the 8 regional. I'm going to count on grazing officials to do the right thing. Everyone has livestock, and I think everyone should be given that opportunity to be given help, regardless if they have a permit or not. And if the feds have issues with that, maybe we need to just go to our congressional delegation and have them help us and take care of that. That's why they're there. So I just wanted to make those comments, Chairman. That's not me.
Please mute your phones. Somebody's phone needs to be muted. Thank you. You may proceed, Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Chairman. So District 15, District 16, District 19, District 20, the 4 districts in Eastern need to be included in this equal distribution. And I think for all of the 31 chapters as well. Remember, Eastern is we have just as much Navajo people as everyone else does. We need to be counted. We need to be included. We can't be looked at as I always hear we're stepchildren, and we can't be that anymore. And I just had a very good conversation with my chapter this morning in Crown Point, and a lot of ties to Eastern Navajo. And I'm going to continue to advocate as much as I can for our area and our agency, because we count just as much as the other 4 agencies do. So, ADA Chairman, I just wanted to mention that. It's important. It's an important time. It's an important discussion. And I think we need to proceed forward. And, if the feds have issues with this, then we need to ask our congressional delegation for help to make changes, because we are still in a pandemic. Life out here is completely different than Washington, D.C., or Santa Fe, or Phoenix, or Salt Lake. And the struggle is real. Struggle will always be real. Our people are still hauling water. Our people are still hauling hay. Our people are still going through generators. And that's the reality of the rural areas of the Navajo Nation. And, for myself, it's very important to bring up and discuss. One chapter is really counting on ARPA. 66 homes are waiting for water right now, and they're really counting on us. So, Edia, Chairman, just wanted to mention that, and I do support my brother's move. So, Edia, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland, for your words of support and encouragement. And what we have discussed so far is that Honorable Stewart being the sponsor of this legislation that was passed, and it became Resolution RDCMA-07-21. He wants to move forward with it as it is. Ako corona hara istigi eyaha Dr. Yellowman, but has on a chapter yisandad Nashigi ASC. You had distribution guidelines needs and eligibility criteria requirement needs and Dean R that Nela. I don't that DA you have the not lower sheep and grazing official though Kaya Hikires Angi Land Board arbitration what I don't know. A cordinal sourcege you have Dr. Shabala Nihichin Hudi left it on Neti Adosh Labika has cancer she arch bananas e left or nas what or nice banega. Every week as a nightly chapters bit Jonah a quaggy though watchman Saturn his one no did raising officials all land board gay Sato Bahan so Jobadon named up as Ark or Abbey Gachon. Aro controller has RA Nabades kit fight all 18 elams and Stoti Noswado, Nessigi Bedin me. Mr. Willie Nila Dihil Shin Nikado was not source Nihichin Huido, Lithila Nila. A could Dr. Yellowman in he Ajabak that deal Nestinal Sourcigi Noswado Nesto chapters then Hitchin Hodaliake. Shabetan Hadit Ahi Ishin Babes Hadatit Eheki as a resolution. All town she control a bit with Nato. Adoshin Peso. Yahanlay chapters than El Gobache Hodad Nato Asha, the Pebinant Ado Kayapanant Ashi. Then that a baby out in Lenebanal Close Holonigation Banda on. A quiet eye based G or Noswado, Nins what don't need. Yeah, a shame once to go a Kodok at a on Boki Allen Begay, Banaran Shata. On Begay. Press star 6.
Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Apologize for coming on late. But Ecuador, País Chiquito, Bashir Tasotzi, Ado, Ecuador, Yan Lindiki, Ecuador, chapters, I'd like to ensure the program that we have adequate, organized, minded people that could be able to help us at the local chapter level. And I want to keep reminding that. Based on Ishi, and yes, the accountability has to be there. I understand accountability has to be followed. But how much is it that we need to have our chapters be able to assist in some areas that is really that would really be beneficial in how they distribute these the purpose of this funding. Jo aje the nen linikito the neye hossen ado the neppe the na socia hossen ado the aje the hot a bespeta hossen akot abet says that on the ad based on ne take boko ago shinti ada beta yik in the bane khiko jo ade yego bebe chenhun ago de nilsen to a eben na satte the chapter official or grazing official sadi in dante and all they're doing is follow what we've attached to these funding akoko khacho ato yego nan to ato yego kohot nen khacho chapter simple instruction which binti and let the grazing official, let the chapter official, and let the staff at the at the chapter level work on in helping distribute the this particular document. Maybe had the taggy so in that in so ban says kiss. Shanant ano fliniki. A lot of time, I mean, again, don't misinterpret my message. I'm not saying that you guys aren't adequately to do the job, but all I'm saying is that I know that you have more other important things to do as well, where you as a program needs to have your full trust in our chapter officials, our grading officials, and the community that they're able to do that needs to be done at the chapter level. Adon she baby get the need and other the ASC now hotline agency office to a quacky shadochan and the shina that's a lot chapters do financial system became destiny a quacky when not done this. Jo an hisato to haizido to the need ego chin an nisha some, not all of it. A coco a baby natural a quacky so Shaban Sokist Ashon it only the Snishes let's not make it too much of an obstacle attached to it, but simply get whatever needs to be done and give it out to the our Navajo people. So when we say it's the Navajo people's money, the Nigago, which we Nigago, Satatopia, the Heta, Nitopia, Hata, Kaban, either that it out because we're talking about each and every individual. Maybe not based on that legal did Nadine late and all did on webinar source and donated or when I don't now hold it that it no bandy card and then didn't that it didn't about so it is shown that all the assistant chairman, other programs, no syndicate, may give a good confidence, trust in our local chapter government. The job is not in this. Because other should show NATO, other should out, other wings, and the job is not shown that only the need of this is a zeta, and I do have my trust in you guys to do good in helping our Navajo people, in which I've seen it. Next day, don't show according to all you go conquer class. I see that be done. All the detail out a no Kia such as artists as zeta. A cocoa, I thought late and then didn't that the Bakai, and they April let down she at in the contact the horse September not the Z that in the by age kick. A call 8 Ecuador zero Tabahasito, the chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Begay. Any other comments or questions, honorable members of RDC?
Chairman.
Yes. Honorable Chair Walker.
Oh, yeah, Chair, committee members, staff, presenters, this afternoon, we did meeting by the Craigie. It needs to be a honorable Begay. Jean Dolly, she a question at others earlier, and soon. We may say that, but I don't know. I call quite again. I don't get that the change quite again. But I just but a day to 1,000 or less. And it is dead. I haven't been no cut what $8. They could only the call you put that on the chart. No, we can now hold you. A quite get communication, written communication, clear written communication going to the local chapters.
Ada, the final, I guess, recommendation or final arrangement, final plan, where based on Ziggy Ada also can go chapters which Eliago. So, at Kinlago. A Bohanetza, Nana Sachi to the public. They didn't, but Kahani, Ada, you cut the east, though. Sometimes we know that written communication going to different officials, like grazing official, is a chapter official. So specifically, she down the negate now had met Satashi or the Eda Shako or at public, but Hanan Liago. Last year, could in CARES Act Hardship Assistance Program. Deed on that you need to deed out and show had no. I would got the Baka, other letter Baka and then the net source on the internet. But written communication, clear written communication going to the chapter officials and grazing officials. And that's such a to the public. You can't each they days in had la baka had not so been done. They should know that it is the call. So, a quite but one okay, shine without that didn't so quite let's provide that necessary and critical information to our local chapters. I know that's planned. I know that's going to happen, but I want to make sure that we leaders also, as leaders, voice that. Oh yeah, depend on. So that no, don't see don't had that need all this. That communication. هدايا صعبة decision on the أباهزن and زيد RDC everything should be administrative. But all benches nahan so they can what the cut. Aidan sinna so ti nanda tati no ibane kasadinko. The triate or lecture that neko. Ashimota nade need lead all this. Although there will be a next time. AIF Nenigi Beso Nan there will be a next time. So we have learned a number of things here in applying the AIF for its intended purposes and ways to do it. Thank you. Yeah, Honorable Vice Chair Walker, and you have a really good recommendation here. Dr. Yellowman Yahatzi earlier. Chapters ASC ben Cogwin only grazing officials Nela. Dr. Yellowman Korobe or Ziggy. Honorable Vice Chair Walker Yahatzi Shin. What Shin but take ahead listen on the studio written communication. A clear written communication to the chapters, to the grazing officials, land board. What on the distribution plan, procurement plan, application, resolutions, eligibility. Dr. Yellowman, Corona not and Dr. Yellowman.
Hello, this is James Adakai. Dr. Yellowman jumped on another call. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, Chair. we are preparing. We did send out communications to all the chapters on several occasions. One was the June 2nd memo. We will follow up on that now that we have some direction and supporting documents that we requested for from DNR. With those guidelines and eligibility criteria, we'll be able to communicate to the chapters what they need to submit and when they need to submit that. And it'll be helpful to have members from the Ag Department on the call or available along with Mr. Adekai in some of these presentations when they go before some of the chapters and chapter staff on those ASC calls. We also have another member on the call right now who is kind of drafting up reporting communication that we'll be sending to ASC so that they can share that with their chapters, and along with the tracking resolutions that we have already. So we appreciate that, and sorry, I'm outside. We appreciate that, and we do look forward to maybe some supporting communication, maybe through the President's office or the Speaker's office as well. Thank you.
Dr. Yellowman, and when you do, also send us a copy of that clear written communications that will be sent to the grazing officials and land board. Dr. Shabala, she came with the Nazlando. Before 5 o'clock distribution guidelines, the eligibility criteria requirement. The Alan Hagishin with us, so say, she became to the case to listen to Shabiga. It's just Nahalan Tara, so we're right on track with this. I would like to give some time to Mr. Roland So. Mr. Roland So. Press *6.
Chairman Nez?
Yes.
Yate, Chairman Nez, you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yate Shananta, Chairman Nez and members of the committee, listening in here, we have never really been reached out to as grazing officials to participate in these discussions. I'm hearing from Dr. Yellowman that they are reaching out to us, but at the agency level, there's a lot of questions on what's going on, what's going to happen, and the amount. Now I'm hearing equal distribution. If you look at the 4 million, looking at some numbers, those of us that have livestock understand the costs of feeding livestock. And then those of us that have grazing permits understand how much it takes to be out there to try to supplement your livestock. Right now, we've got the monsoons and we've got some grass coming in, but their roots haven't reestablished. So we really have to pull back on livestock to keep them in, try to minimize the impact out there. And I guess that's what the Agricultural Infrastructure Fund insurance was mainly for, is to reduce the impact out there. And that's what we got to look at. So looking at what I'm feeding flake corn for cattle and sheep, as high content of fat. 4-way is much more like candy. So flake corn, we purchase around $14 to $15, depending on where you're buying it and the fat. And then 4-way, people are purchasing it from $8 to about $10 in that range, depending on where you're buying it too. Trace mineral blocks are going at about $7 to $8 with tax and everything. Then the most important thing that we're using as livestock owner is protein tubs, and that's one of the biggest help that we have. The 125-pound tubs, they're running about $65 a tub. Some of them are cheaper. Some of the higher protein content are higher in the hundreds of dollars in the tubs. So and then alfalfa is running $15, $16 a bale. So looking at those numbers, and those of us that keep records of what we feed and how much we spend, looking at the 4 million, dividing up in equal distribution kind of comes down to 110 chapters of $36,000. So let's say some of the chapters have 250 permits, like Tuba City, Chinle. These areas have about 250 grazing permits. Plus, if it's for all non-permittees, you're looking at about distributing to about 500 people in Chinle and Tuba City. That by that time, you divide the 363. It comes down to about $72.72. And when you're looking at $16 a bale, that's only 4 bales right there. What are we actually giving? What are we actually doing to relieve the range? Are we just kind of throwing candy from the float? Is that what we're doing if we're giving 4 bales to 500 people? So we got to really look at the numbers. Are we doing an impact? Are we helping people? Or are we just throwing money out there? Looking at the other side, if you're looking at permits, Chinle and Tuba City around to average of $250 to 250 permits. If you just go by the permits, you're actually helping each one of them with around $145. $145 per permit, depending on how many permits are there. So the range will be $140 to $160 per permittee. When you divide that down with the costs I gave you, like flake corn, you can actually give them 2 bags. You can actually give them two mineral blocks and then 2 protein blocks. By that time, you give them about $170 worth of products for them to supplement their feed. So you really got to come back at numbers. You really got to have somebody like grazing officials and Eastern Land Boards at the table and say, look, here are the costs. This is how much people spend. This is how far that equal distribution is going to last. If we just give it to everybody, anybody who owns a livestock, how do we know that they own livestock? That brings down the cost. I mean, just giving 4 bales to an individual, 4 bales last 2 days on some of us. They last 1 day on certain people who have larger, more cattle and sheep. So 4 bales is nothing. If you look at the equal distribution, the 36,000 divided by 110, for each 110 chapters, 36,000, that comes down to nothing. It's like just throwing money out there. So the way I did in my community is we looked at how do we really help the range out there? We supplement. We don't just give them alfalfa out there, but we supplement with these 3 things that I mentioned. Flake corn. Some people prefer 4-way, which is a little cheaper. And then mineral blocks, they're needed. Our livestock need minerals all summer. They suffered. They need protein, but these protein tubs, they really need these protein tubs there. I have producers coming back saying, where did you get those protein tubs that they distributed from emergency for May Farms chapter? And I tell them where I purchased. They're going back and purchasing these protein tubs because it really helps their cattle. It really helps their sheep. That's what our cattle need is protein. So we need to work together and figure out how do we really help the range instead of just throwing it out there, like, as I mentioned, like throwing candy off the float. Are we going to do that, or are we going to help the range? We got to make that decision, Shinanta, and I'm really hoping that we are at the table for our producers this time around. When it comes down here, it doesn't work down here. So bring us to the table, Shinanta. Let us participate so we can do this correctly, the right way, where we can help the range. Kodia, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. So, for expressing your concerns for the work you do, as well as the work that your other colleagues, grazing officials, do out there in their communities. One of the things that was recommended was equal distribution, but we're not going to go with that. We're not going to do the equal distribution. It has to go at 50-50 formula. So that would help those chapters that have more permittee holders out there. So Mr. So, honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? What else? Dr. Earl Yellowman and her shop there, the good people over there, as well as DNR, the recommendations is that these will be moving forward now. But the sponsor of the legislation, Honorable Stewart, said, let's just move forward with it. The controller needs these documents, and Dr. Yellowman's shop is going to help them. And also, Dr. Shabala is going to send his documents, supporting documents as far as criteria requirement, eligibility, and distribution guidelines. Adoti procurement that yon neto haned na kishin chapter resolutions do betahastro. Aita nan tati diki. The plan for this funding has already been allocated. So so I believe we're ready to move forward. So are there any other comments or questions, Nanda?
Chairman Nez?
None? Yes, who's this?
This is Melinda.
Okay, Melinda, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Nez and members of RDC, as well as our callers and everyone tuning in this afternoon. And the question is, the Speaker's office would respectfully like to ask what the timeline is in regards to the overall plan, or where the chapters are going to be receiving this information to get the green light. I know that Division of Community Development's oversight over this project is a very important one, and that we would just like to see once the documents are received from Natural Resources, when the planning portion of the timeline, and then also when it will be fully implemented, I guess is the question. When does that look to be?
Thank you. Dr. Yellowman, your response?
Good afternoon, Chair. I was meeting with the family here. Could Ms. Fiacco please repeat her question?
Ms. Fiacco?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone on the call. Dr. Yellowman, the question was just if we could get a timeline of when this will be fully implemented as DCD's oversight for this project. Thank you.
Dr. Yellowman?
Thank you. As soon as possible? No. I think the chapters are ready to submit their resolutions and their information. We would try our best to communicate as much as we can with OOC on distributing the funds. That's really hard to answer. I mean, we know our system here. Everyone's working hard, so I'm not going to put a date on that, but just reassure you that after today's meeting, we have a good direction. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. And honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? Honorable Stewart,
Chairman Callan.
Honorable Gay, go ahead.
I keep losing signal. I am driving into Windrock again. But did earlier Bahaotzi, and I don't know if it was answered or there was further clarification. Did criteria or requirements have they defined that, or are they going to work on it? Because one of the grading officials is saying that could we participate in developing this requirement? That way we know that there is at least at the local level, maybe even by the agency grading leadership. My thinking would be that the local levels were at the table. Council maybe get the assurance from the program that physically that the program will have a call scheduled meeting with the grazing officials from the various chapters or at the agency level. And I'd like to be invited, not to say for sure, not to. Now I'm not going to say anything. I wanted to hear how they are getting this particular situation to get things going. So nice is kind of like Chairman.
Thank you. Dr. Yellowman, could you provide us an update report in about 30 days or either 14 days and 2 weeks to see where we're at with all this? Dr.
Yes,
Yellowman?
sir. We can do that, sir. Thank you.
That way we can have you come before RDC during the regular scheduled meetings on Wednesday. And I believe the chapters and grazing officials will be listening in for an update as well at that time. So just let us know which one will work, 14 days or in 2 weeks or 30 days, 1 month.
30 days, sir.
Yeah. We do need a clarification. Did you hear, Dr. Yellowman? Honorable Begay, are you still on? Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Yellowman. Dr. Yellowman?
I'm sorry, Chair. Could you repeat that?
Honorable Begay, are you still on the call?
Chairman, I'm here.
Okay. Did you ask for a clarification on the eligibility requirement?
Chairman, yes, I could. I've asked if the Dr. Yellowman could be able to define further what is being compiled as being a requirement for distribution or that the office has set up a meeting with the local or agency level grazing officials to participate in further provide their input. That way we know that there was an input and deliberation between the program and the local grazing official. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Earlier, Dr. Yellowman did say that they meet with chapters every week, and Mr. Leo Watchman was invited to to assist with that, and also perhaps make some clarifications if there's anything that's misunderstood from the chapter level. But I'll have Dr. Yellowman reiterate her response. Dr. Yellowman?
Thank you, Chair. Shanand, Delegate Kalambigay, we have been compiling quite a bit of information and our memos that we sent out to the chapters that reflect the interpretation of the legislation. And as of today, we have completed 2 types of applications that will go to DOJ for review. Per the review of DOJ, we've also courtesy copied OOC, Mr. Rob Willie, for his review as well. Those have been compiled or will be compiled. We're asking for 2 additional supporting documents, that the eligibility criteria, and then the other one is the distribution guidelines. We need those from DNR. And if you recall, the eligibility criteria had the listing of the types of animals. And it was like 2 months ago, DCD, we were advocating for llamas. That's what's on there. We need to attach that so the chapter livestock owners, they have supporting information. So that will be in addition to our report to RDC again when we come back, and the meetings we have through ASC. The ASC SPPS staff host calls weekly almost and provide chapter updates. That's the time that we're inviting DNR, Mr. Watchman, and Mr. Shabala, and members of RDC to listen in. But we're asking Mr. Watchman to present information on moving forward on this project here. There's a role DCD will play in on the procurement side, but the monitoring and communication with the grazing and land board, we highly anticipate DNR taking the role on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yellowman. Honorable Begay, do you have a follow-up?
Chairman, the reason why I'm asking is that maybe have the division community development provide us who they have actually made contact as far as chapter Nindiki, because that a lot of times some of these chapters don't have an ASC, a CSC and an AMS staff of the thought of the vacancies. So I want to know and want to make sure that these chapters that lacks an administration or the chapter officials that because we just don't want to assume that all 110 chapters have been contacted. Chapters the chapters that hot has gido that net that the target AECQ but contact ya go other chapters ECQ but the bed up and not for stuff on the but the initial key jot that other netiki is your baby or if I can ask Dr. Yellowman to forward me my 5 chapters that I represent and who have they talked with, and I want to make sure that everything is being discussed is being disseminated to the local chapter, the grazing official, and the community member. So any of those don't be kid on this, Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Begay, for your questions. Dr. Yellowman, your response?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, before you respond, also, Honorable Begay, earlier, Honorable Vice Chair Walker requested a clear written communications to the Grazing and Land Board, to the chapters as well, to let them know that this is the distribution plan, how this is going to be distributed, as well as Dr. Yellowman's recommendation as to what the letter will look like, and we'll receive that letter when she does send it out. So just for your information, Dr. Yellowman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As I shared, we have already been receiving some resolutions and supporting documents from the chapters. After we sent out that June 2nd memo, the chapters have been responding. We did hold off on receiving some of those resolutions because we were anticipating perhaps some amendments. If the amendments are not going to be made, which sounds like that's what we agreed on today, then we can move forward. We do have a tracking system already in place, and we can share that with in our report as well, and we can have some update calls with chapters. So, Chair, we can provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Freeland.
Okay, my bull's waiting and shoot one, right?
Your willy riding is ready.
Thank you, Chairman. I was talking away and I guess I was muted. Chairman, other colleagues, RDC members, I will, in regards to the distribution plan, I do have a question. I don't know who could answer this, but will it be a one-time allocation to the chapters, or will it be divided up? I guess is my question. Or I guess in other ways, will the chapters be allowed to do a one-time distribution, or will they be allowed to divide it up? Let's say maybe 3 times or 4 times. If that's I don't know how this distribution plan is going to work or how it's going to be divided up. So that's my question, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yellowman?
Okay, thank you, Chair and Delegate Freeland. That's a good question, and I anticipate that from what we've been hearing from the chapters, there was a time just recently during the summer that a lot of the supplies could or would go short once we open up for these procurement methods to come in from the chapters. So I would advocate through OOC that we make it flexible in the event that there's some shortages of any type of hay, grain, or feed. Also, I think, again, it goes back to how fast we can process these RDPs. And so I think that part's important. And also communicating with the vendors is another consideration to make. So we would advocate or side on perhaps more than one RDP, but just keep in mind the resolution does state that once all the legislation states that once all the resolutions are at OOC, then the distributions can be made. So we would have to work closely with OOC on some, I guess flexibility would be the word, or understanding that there's some challenges out there. It could be the supply and demand of hay, grain, and feed, or it could be just communication with vendors out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Yeah. Ado, Nanta. You said now, it's very clear now how this is going to unfold. Bahazania. But every week, Monday, ASC and DCD communicates with the chapters. Make sure you tell your grazing officials to also be on the call. And there's a plan in place. There's 2 areas that DOJ needs to review. 2 draft applications and the distribution guidelines and eligibility criteria. Chapter chapters have your LDAs also make sure they do a follow-up. Let them do a follow-up. Has my chapters submitted their supporting documents, resolutions, budgets? So take Arabahazinias, Lincoln, Hetato, 50-50, she hot equal distribution, Edot, Hala A Lav, that's Hastatano Chess. Chapters, you permit holders, Behalno, I adequate, Ebony, Hist, Albalia, Dobigata. I see, Nh. Sa aro les ara ebony na Arabahazina go Koroba and Hitnahazna. Dog Abahoni Chinshnant Arno Seneki. Ado our email of Seko, sto email it off safety there, Dr. Yellowman, a koi in Naship. But Fahosen do Dino Kediki, not on hitch a hundred and nest. What are a kitnade in the stoya, Teho Koro. Isa Betana Hadit Ahin Habe Lazle, Corona Hinet, Honorable Stewart, Ado Korot Atich Haj Pesa, but that no Nasok and the Lahis Kera had any double leg, isn't a bit in going yen nest also. A share, Arnold Korot, I should not argue. Honorable members of RDC, any other last comments before we adjourn?
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, man, yes, I don't know, could select delegate Stewart, I see by Heta needs and I don't know later, but the car yet have at the local level, ranchers, grazing permit holders. I don't know, I see, the death that Kodona Gate from one of the grazing official Kodona Gate, Lando, former council delegate Kodona Mr. Roland So Kodona Kiazan Tago. I call Mike Adanta Kaya New, the Guandi Kodo Hasido, Zudash Art on Darkness Kodona grazing official Bebenant, on land board. Zudash Art on Darkness, I see that they work closely with the people. They work closely with the ranchers, permit holders, and Leniki, Adonana Kaya, Yenash Eagle Store, Ye not 10, Ye name 10. Of course, I wish all the grazing officials were like this, the Shawee Bahas vehicle. So, I mean, with Ecuador, what you said today, Kodona, just earlier, I totally agree with you, Kodona, Mr. So, Kodona. Mr. Roland, so Kodona Great they are not basically by 4 million so sick with the number of grazing permit holders that we have. So sick I don't know the state on this. I don't know it's another state on this Kodona Great Navajo ranchers permit holders and non-permit holders that. It's not a state or less. I need in the Ecuador. We're just throwing money away. So it's enough. I agree with that, Ecuador. But I don't know Ecuador. Quizita, maybe the next round to get that. Quizita, Quizor, the need is Quizigo. Kaya, Nahis na. Alita, Kaya, Nahis na. So it's other thing. And the other article. So they are done by that. But the next one, get actually has the next. I see that the Kena who is net or less. the next round. Okay, but not the we have a lot of feral horses out there that are roaming around. They're going into these right-of-way fences along the highway. In dark, how do you find out that? But that the quarter night is found out. Well, that he can't go. The children got the even not as car. So get them. The rate of feral horses, the shenanigans, as the height ada. Baba hadith. So I don't know the rate in the rate of chapters in which was net on this. I don't know grazing officials in the arena stories. I know there's going to be a lot of questions moving forward. I know we have our permit holders that some are in non-compliance. Coco the rate of the lot of Seniki Asia, so other same by Baba Yati, so Asian Kododa, Asian Pedato and Nescodo. So, but Kododa rate of I think he now is Niki Kodo, Lebanon, I'm a Senegate on an Eastern Land Board, Kodo. I think Kodo Shan get the Schnedo, Kodo, working closely with your constituency, Kodona rate of I don't know grazing permit holders, Senegate. I don't know. At the same time, you guys are educating our Navajo grazing permit holders. Okay, so Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Daniels. Drought tour go lago kayan and and how do we revitalize our land? Grazing officials, but so behind the Asian ananas is all that. So I said, Lago Shinavikia deal Tita, because there you have AI effigy, Koro Kadnas, but Nilni, or the hash. Oh, then. And Dr. Yellowman, if you would encourage all the chapters to submit their supporting documents, resolutions, and budgets for this AIF also, Dr. Yellowman.
Chairman Nez?
Yeah.
Chairman Nez, this is Speaker
this?
Damon.
Oh, yeah, Desmond, Speaker Damon.
So,
would you like to speak?
Yes, Chairman, I greatly appreciate if the committee allow me a couple minutes to speak on this matter. I've been listening into this conversation, so again, thank you. Would that be okay, Chairman?
You have to text RTS request to speak, then we'll put you in the queue. This no speaker. Go ahead. Oh. You have the floor, sir.
I don't have that 1-800 hotline to RDC's texting line. Well, Chairman, thank you very much, and members of the Resource and Development Committee, and thank you very much, Dr. Yellowman, for being on the line, and Dr. Shabala, all the staff from Department of Ag, and then also from DCD too as well. I know that this is a long-time structured legislation that we've been working on with Honorable Stewart for it's going to be a year in October when Ms. Siako and Honorable Stewart were trying to gather as much information as they possibly could to finally get these dollars out to the people. As you know, this AIF funds have been implemented back in the 23rd Council, and I know that there was numerous different meetings across the whole nation and trying to say and identify how they could definitely get a hold and move forward, and how these dollars could help implement and to meet the local people's needs. And I know that with this great program that we had created, this was going to be one of the first avenues that the people can actually see something come to fruition to help, and not just individuals that had permits. I know that they created this to really try to identify, to say, how could we do this and move forward and help everyone that does have livestock.
I know that there was a huge debate just on that specific notion, but I know that through the leadership of yourself, Chairman, through the leadership from Honorable Stewart's process of really trying to push forward with this, I greatly thank him. And then through the leadership from the committee and trying to make sure that this is implemented. I think it's more importantly in purpose that we should definitely move forward. So, I thank you, Chairman, and for everyone to follow up on this, to really say what can we do and what are the next steps, because I know this is something that everyone will definitely benefit from. So again, thank you very much for having this discussion, and I look forward to following up not only with my own chapters but with agency calls too as well, to know that Dr. Yellowman, again, for pushing forward with those documents that the chapters are going to need to go ahead and build those expenditure plans that are ICE has been scriptly presented in the legislation itself. So again, thank you again for everyone to be on the line and trying to push forward with this, because this is something that's definitely going to be beneficial in the coming months. Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
Speaker Damon, Aro, Ahainzi, Dog, Ache, Dean Noswador, next special, Gin, chapters, Babinant, Ibedin, Nenegate, land board, Aji, and Ad, Leshkot, Nehi, Tra, Fitole, Aja. So we're good with this, and this has been a long time coming now. So I believe that right before winter, today's the first day of fall, so people will be getting their hay feed and grain as soon as possible. But we'll get an update in 30 days, and certain documents were requested, which will be sent to Division of Community Development from DNR, and then she'll work with the Controller's Office, Mr. Willie over there. So everything's in place now. So Honorable Stewart, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Shania. Chairman Nez, Auto Shaja, Vice Chair Walker, Auto Glenigi, thought Shania Ke, Dog Kodogi, thought Shania Hadzi, thought Mr. Roland, so Auto Kwagi, a staff and Finigita. Okay, with this legislation, again, I didn't get out. Additionally, also to move forward with it as written, to get them to get the update within 30 days on how this legislation has progressed and what initiatives and the steps that the Division of Natural Resources and the Department of Agriculture have taken to assist the Division of Community Development in getting these done. See, Alan, get an involvement from the local chapter. Can you hear me? Chair.
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. And then to also get the assistance from the, what Shania was saying, to get assistance from the local chapter officials in Lenigi. I think it's only going to be fair if we work directly with the grazing official land board and also the ASCs and the chapter managers, because they're the ones that are going to be working with this funding mainly. The other chapter officials don't really have a say so as far as the distribution goes, because knowing that a lot of them don't work closely, I don't think, with the permittee holders out there. So I think it's be better if we keep it to where it's the land board or the grazing officials along with the chapter staff to process these documents for them. And that's just what I want to share, Shania, as to what we needed to do with this one. And then also express that again, and that we can go ahead and do that and work closely with Dr. Yellowman and Mr. Shabala and Mr. Watchman on these processes. and again, to move forward with the initiative to see what we can do. This is only step one to using these funds and sending these funds down to the chapter level. But how else can we work? There are other initiatives that we could take too for future use for this funding. That's what I wanted to share, Shana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Satila. Dr. Yellowman, do you have a closing statement?
Thank you, Chair. I just thanking RDC for working with us, and DNR and OOC. We've heard quite a bit from the chapters. We heard quite a bit from chapter officials and chapter staff, and a lot of concern from livestock owners. And many of us on this call have livestock. And so we do want relief, and quite a bit has already happened with both the monsoon and then the drought, and now with winter starting soon. So, Chair, we'll do our best to finish and complete and implement the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shabala? Dr. Shabala?
Yadishan and I, Chairman Sheetish and Rudy R. Shabala. Juna Goshitsky saw the dealing is to Asanda Atleko, Pesa budget nota. Aro Belita, yeah, in the Yanta spot all this. I couldn't saw the yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Watchman? Mr. Watchman? Mr. Willie? Mr. Robert Willie?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm not sure if we want to get OMB involved in this also too, because I just noticed that all these business units are fiscal year. So we all know the fiscal year is going to end on September 30th. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with this funding. I don't recall what the legislation said, but if we're going to be a month into it, that'll take us into fiscal year 2022, and I'm not sure if they're going to carry these over into the new year. So I guess sorry, it's a late question, but I just now saw that too. So just letting you know.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps at our next follow-up, they'll also be a part of it. Ms. Begay, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, if the fiscal year is ending on the 30th, you may need to get OMB under the call, or have Dr. Yellowman and Dr. Shabala meet with OMB as quickly as they could, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Please mute your phones. Somebody's phone needs to be muted. Dr. Yellowman, Dr. Shabala, could you meet with OMB and get some guidance on what Mr. Willie just mentioned? It sounds very important that we know about the ending of the fiscal year 21 and how it'll work as far as funding. Dr. Yellowman? Press *6. Dr. Yellowman? Ms. Begay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Yellowman? Mr. Adekai? Anybody from DCD?
Mr. Chair, I think we lost our call. I can email them and have them follow up, but with OMB.
Okay, I would appreciate that. We would appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. McGay. With
Mr.
that,
Chair, Mr. Chair,
yes, Ms. Khan, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, good afternoon, members of the committee and individuals who are listening to today's call. My name is Mariana Khan. I work with the Office of Legislative Counsel. I just wanted to point out to the Resources and Development Committee that this particular fund management plan says that the funds do not lapse. So if the concern is that there is going to be no more funding once the end of the fiscal year comes, then I would have the Office of the Controller have assistance from the Department of Justice and for them to get guidance on what not lapsing means. And my understanding of the funds not lapsing is it's not tied to the end of the fiscal year, and OOC could work with the Department of Justice to get clarification on that language, but that's my understanding of that language. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Mr. Willie, are you still on the call?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I would encourage Dominic to also be included in that. Also, Office of Management and Budget, because we don't take care of the budget. So the thing in question is the budget. So if they're going to make that call, and DOJ is going to interpret in that way, that OMB is going to need to know, because they're the ones that would have to carry the budget over into the new year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Khan, is there anything that we also need to add?
No, Mr. Chair, that seems to be the issue at this moment is the lapsing or the non-lapsing of the funds. It is, I don't know if Mr. Willie is going to make communication with both the division of the Department of Justice's Natural Resources Unit and its Finance Unit. There's two units at the Department of Justice that would interpret the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund Management Plan. And it is my suggestion that the Office of the Controller and the Office of Management and Budget work with those two attorney units at the Department of Justice to figure out what needs to be done so that the funds, so that the intent of the Navajo Nation Council and the Resources and Development Committee of the interpretation of the funds not lapsing, that stays a reality. And that is a very specific question for Department of Justice to assist its clients, Office of Management and Budget and Office of the Controller, to help them through this particular, very specific ways of handling that issue. Mr. Chair, that is something that I could speak with Department of Justice on myself, but I would like the Office of Management and Budget and Office of the Controller to make that communication themselves.
Okay. Yeah, still on the call. Ms. Begay, is Dr. Yellowman on the call? Mr. Tahi?
Chair members have already seen Dr. Yellowman is not on the call, but I do see
Chair.
Mr. James Adekai. Oh yeah, she's on the call now.
Yes, Dr. Yellowman.
I'm on the call.
Okay, wait. Go ahead.
I just recall that early on that the legislation was did indicate that the AIF funds did have a certain type of I guess they're federal dollars, federal criteria or populations to serve, and the legislation had another formula to serve a different population. And we did have a discussion on how to resolve or align the outcome to being compliant with the AIF funds and the resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Dr. Yellowman. So we need you to coordinate with Department of Justice as well as OMB on this language where it talks to not lapse. Okay, Dr. Yellowman?
Okay, thank you.
Kushila, I believe we're pretty much done. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? Atenya, Kushila, thank you all very much. There will be a follow-up. I believe in 30 days, documents will be sent to DCD from DNR before 5 o'clock today. Dr. Yellowman will work with OMB to make clarifications with Department of Justice, as well as DCD will pretty much send out a clear written communications to the grazing officials, the land board, the chapters, and we will be CC'd on all these emails, Dr. Yellowman. So make sure that RDC is CC'd on this communication. And thank you very much. Yes, who's this?
Honorable Nance, Yat Eastern Land Board. I just wanted to say a few things, okay?
I can't let you speak now, sir, because
Cool.
I have to open it up for every grazing official now. I already provided one. Then I'm going to have to open it up for everybody. So, but I would like for you all to work with your delegates as well as DCD. They have meetings every Monday. So
thank you very much
for getting on the call.
Oh,
Kushila, I believe we're done. It is now 3:26 p.m. We will adjourn at this time. Thank you very much, Dr. Yellowman, Dr. Shabala, Mr. Watchman, Mr. Willie, Ms. Khan, RDC staff, and honorable colleagues. Go on.